The joyous thud of rusted cuffs falling. The obliterating groan of a door never opened before. Hesitant breaths, a trembling form, a thrilling buzz of anticipation. Hello, I am Cindy Shoshat, and I will be presenting my thesis with you all today. Let's talk about why poetry. Well, poetry was my form of emotional communication and understanding, taking an abstract and solidifying it with visual metaphors. It was a way for me to connect with my emotions, starting with songs and expanding further out to classics as well as writing my own. But before that, some questions to ask. Firstly, how can I make this realistically possible with barely a budget and limited resources? What would or could make a poem engaging yet still one-sided? Does having a viewer having a complete understanding of the poem risk their power to interpret the poem instead? None of these questions, however, can be answered without considering who I am targeting my project towards, which are my roommates and fellow college students alike, as they will be the ones giving feedback at the end of the experience, a survey of sorts as to how the effects of motion deepen the effect of the poetry firsthand. Speaking of research, allow me to share some of mine with you. Here is a project similar to mine. However, the concept is poetry placed in transportation hubs around New York City. This got me thinking, wouldn't people miss a static poem in a place full of motion? So I continued my research to how moving graphics directly interact with our environment. Here is one example, a rebrand of the New York City Football Club. A work in their case study was demonstrating moving typography within differing spaces. The second example was an SNL 50s celebration video created by Pentagram. It used a dynamic film background while fluidly incorporating text within it. Then there was a rebrand of the fashion agency called Gotham. I was hooked on the way the large letters played with the photos of the models in the posters. Lastly was a handwritten font from a project in last year's thesis show, which leads me to what I'm working on currently. I've made 2 mood boards. I initially liked seeing the juxtaposition of new forms of media with older ones. I was thinking of having the poem writing itself as the video plays, which is why it's showing a poem on paper with the video graphics in the background. However, I needed to dive deeper, so I turned to Instagram Reels. I created a folder for these reels, usually containing limited text and incredible voiceovers, anything that caught my eye or caught my ears. This caused me to start expanding, not just seeing something, but hearing it, and with further feedback from a colleague possibly feeling it through sample textures. However, I hosted a small party to see what made a poem engaging during and after the fact as well. We played a game where we wrote a poem, everyone wrote a line each, combining them together with the freedom to express the words however we wished. Now, all this talk and I haven't told you what to expect. I want to create mainly a motion video blending film, motion type, and audio sound effects and voiceovers. Here is a sketch of a storyboard for a possible poem I wrote for this project. Thank you for joining me here today and listening to my presentation. Here is my Instagram and email for any feedback, and allow me to end it off with the freshly opened sky, the frightening racing rush of the unknown, the unsafe, and the free.